Hello everyone, and welcome back to the history of Five Nights at Freddy's. Last time, guys, we covered the golden age of FNAF, which consisted of Five Nights at Freddy's 1, 2, and 3. We saw the series expand with its sequels and its community. It was a good time overall during the golden age. However, after the release of FNAF 3, the series' popularity would begin to crumble, and would eventually lead to its downfall. This is the history of Five Nights at Freddy's, Part 3. So first we have to ask, why did the series continue after FNAF 3? Well, to put it simply, Scott wasn't happy with Springtrap's jump scare. Originally, he was going to be capping the series off as a trilogy. However, the game was met with a ton of backlash. People criticized the game for being too easy, having an overall lack of horror, and having a story that was getting more and more confusing. I mean, you literally had to press numbers into a wall in order to get part of the lore. But, most of all, people did not like the jump scare of Springtrap.
Even though I may have, in some, alternate life, may have left the series alone at 3, people were not happy with the jump scare. And so then that kind of, in my mind, that wouldn't let the series rest in a way, because I wanted to make another entry that was really, really scary again.
And so Scott will go on to make Five Nights at Freddy's 4. After the release of FNAF 3, Scott would update his website with a picture of Freddy's hat lay on the floor, signifying the end of the series. That was until the hat disappeared. The first teaser for FNAF 4 was posted on April the 27th, 2015, with a reveal of the new design for Freddy, now being all torn up and scoring sharp teeth and claws, with these little Freddys clinging onto him. The game was dubbing itself the final chapter and was set to release on Halloween. Brightening the image will reveal the new name for these animatronics, the Nightmares. The next set of teasers would then show off the designs for the other characters, with each of them asking the question, was it me? There are many theories as to what exactly this meant, but the most popular theory at the time was that this was referring to the Bite of 87, and each animatronic was asking which one of them was the culprit. Could it be that this game was going to answer one of the biggest ongoing mysteries in the series? Only time would tell. The next teaser showed a purple top hat and bow tie lying on the floor. Brightening the image revealed the text, property of... Oh, come on, Scott. People wondered who owned the hat and the bow tie, but this question would then be answered in this teaser. Big jaws, huge stomach mouth, no doubt this was the culprit. Hidden in the source code are a set of letters that, when taken one back, spell Fredbear. Yes, Scott was now adding lore in the source code. Shiver me timbers, that's crazier than my fan art. You think that's crazy? You haven't seen nothing yet. And terrible things come in small packages. This teaser shows what appears to be a small plush of Springtrap on a chair in the middle of a hallway. It was clear at this point that we were no longer at Freddy's. We're in someone's house. Then came the trailer showing that you weren't just going to be stuck in one place, but there would be different rooms and areas of the house. And of course, theories ran wild. A lot of people were wondering where in the timeline this game was going to take place. While some thought it was going to be a sequel to FNAF 3, others thought it would explore the origins of Freddy's with Fredbear's Family Diner. The questions would be quickly answered, however, since despite the fact that this game was set to release on Halloween, Scott decided to release it early once again on July 23rd, 2015. Honestly, no one should be surprised at this point. Immediately, the two most notable things about this game are its location and movement. Rather than being a security guard at a Chuck E. Cheese-like establishment, you're a child trapped in your bedroom, with the animatronics freely roaming the hallways of your home. This game also integrates a sort of movement where you can move to different parts of the room, something that the other games didn't have. Your main defense is on your flashlight, which you must use to shine at your animatronics in order to keep them at bay, and doors, which should only be used if they're too close for you to use your flashlight. Because you no longer have any cameras, in order to know where the animatronics are, you have to listen to very subtle audio and visual cues the animatronics make. One slip up and it's game over, and it's easy to with how active the animatronics are and with how much longer the nights are, which are about 6 minutes long in this game in contrast to the other games' nights, which are about 4 minutes and 45 seconds long.
Okay, so the first night is never usually that bad in any of the games, so I'll play through.
Before the start of each night, you'll play a minigame called Fun with Plus Trap. In this minigame, you're put in a dark hallway and shining your light will reveal a green bunny plush animatronic called Plus Trap. Your goal is to get Plus Trap on the white X directly in front of you before the time runs out, and Plus Trap only moves in the dark. Successfully timing Plus Trap on the X rewards you by putting you 2 hours into the next night. Nights 1 through 4 are all the same. Once you get to night 5, things change. You only have one enemy to deal with, Fredbear, who is not only more aggressive than the other animatronics, but can show up anywhere. Aside from making the game harder, Scott also wanted to make Five Nights at Freddy's 4 to be one of the scariest FNAF games ever, since that was one of the biggest complaints people had with FNAF 3. So did Scott succeed in making FNAF 4 one of the most terrifying experiences yet? Well, it depends on who you ask. While the sound design is generally agreed as being really good, other aspects of the jump scares are a lot more indecisive. Some people thought that FNAF 4 was easily the scariest of the franchise had seen, while others reacted like PewDiePie.
What did I do wrong? If you play the first 3 games, you're practically immune to the jump scares.
Another thing that was up for debate were the designs of the Nightmare animatronics. While some fans thought that the animatronic designs looked really cool and fit well with the aesthetic, others thought that they were way too over the top and trying way too hard to be scary. FNAF 4 also has an extras menu that showcases the models, their jump scares, how some of the models were made, access to Fun with Plus Trap, and some extra challenges. Completing these challenges rewards you with stars, which, unlike in the previous games, FNAF 4 actually has 4 stars that you can get in total. Not only that, but completing some of these nights also got you some extra lore bits, which, speaking of lore... Alright, I'm going to be keeping the lore brief today because we're going to be talking about Dream Theory later, but all you need to know is this. At the beginning of each night, you get a countdown to a birthday party, your birthday party, at Fredbear's Family Diner. You play as a crying child who's terrified of the animatronics at Fredbear's because of something that he apparently saw at the diner. His older brother decides to take advantage of this fear and starts scaring him, leaving him behind at the diner, and even locking him in the storage room with all the empty suits and robot parts. The crying child also has a Fredbear plushie that talks to him and follows him around, spying on him. We learn in later games that this was actually his father controlling this plushie, but that's an episode for another day. On the day of the party, the older brother and some of his bully friends decide to pull off one last ultimate prank by putting the crying child into the mouth of Fredbear and... And so finally, the bite of 87 was solved. Well, actually, in the Night 3 minigame, a TV will display a cartoon show for Fredbear and Friends, with the date of 1983 on it. causing confusion as to whether or not what we had witnessed was the bite of 87. Thanks, Scott. After beating the Night 6 challenge, you get a cutscene where the crying child is sitting in a void with nothing but his plushies and the animatronic characters, including the talking Fredbear plush. He says to the crying child, "You're broken. We are still your friends. Do you still believe that? I'm still here. I will put you back together." The phrase, "I will put you back together," has remained a mystery to this day, as no one can seem to really know what exactly the phrase means. But speaking of mysteries, we have to talk about the box. If you are able to beat the nightmare mode, you get a box-like chest with 2 locks on it. Clicking on the locks wiggles them a bit, but they remain locked. Then appears the text, "Perhaps some things are best left forgotten for now." People were convinced that whatever was inside this box had to have been the key to solving the lore, which is what made it all the more frustrating that Scott decided to keep it a secret from us. As for some other secrets, if you double back in one of the minigames, you can see the purple guy helping an employee into a spring lock suit. And in night gameplay, items such as flowers, bottle of pills, and IV bag can be seen on the bedside, signifying that this player has definitely experienced death, whether it be their own or someone else's. But now, let's talk about Dream Theory. Alright, allow me to set the stage. It's after the release of FNAF 4, and it seems like the series is over. While we did end up announcing another game, it seemed to be just a spin-off with no connections to the main series. With this news, MatPat hosted a stream on his live channel where he brought some of the most prominent FNAF YouTubers at that time together in order to solve the timeline. Their first attempt was on September 3rd, 2015, but during the event, the stream crashed and was unfortunately unrecoverable, forcing them to reschedule.
Hey guys, and welcome to GT Live, the stream that was preemptively canceled last time. Not canceled, we shut down YouTube last time due to just the amazing bandwidth of everyone who wants to know the answers of FNAF, asking for answers about FNAF. We are back. It is finally rescheduled, and we are here today to do it. So thank you guys all for joining, spending your Friday afternoon with me and the rest of the FNAF theorists who we've been lucky enough to have rejoin us for today.
Unfortunately, due to technical issues, the stream kept crashing, resulting in most of the hosts leaving and the event being practically ruined. Scott, however, who was watching the whole time, wanted to make sure that this was an event to remember. On September the 8th, 2015, the day of the stream, Scott would update his website 3 times, each with a mysterious lore hint. In the FNAF 4 minigame, why would the tiny toy Chica be missing her beak? What is seen in the shadows is easily misunderstood in the mind of a child. And 4 games, 1 story. MatPat and his friend Alec were stumped. What could this mean? They got one of the guests, Daco, back on the stream to discuss these updates. And then it clicked.
Is it possible, again, this is completely off the wall, is it possible that FNAF 2 didn't actually happen?
And it was just, yeah, I know what you mean.
Is it possible that similar to FNAF 4, which takes place inside the mind of a child, is it possible that FNAF 2 also took place in the mind of a child?
Could it be that FNAF 2, like FNAF 4, was also a dream? In FNAF 2, Toy Chica would be beakless whenever she was out and about, and in FNAF 4, we do see an action figure of Chica without its beak. Not to mention that the broken Toy Foxy and the kid with the balloon, whom we also see in FNAF 4's minigames, could be the real-life inspirations for the Mango and Balloon Boy. But why just stop at FNAF 2? What about the scene with the purple guy putting an employee into a suit? The crying child could have easily misinterpreted that as him stuffing a dead body into the suit to hide it, just like with the missing children's incident from the first game. Or what about the grandfather clock chimes that you hear at the end of each shift? Those could be tied to FNAF 4 where the house has a grandfather clock in it. this was it. Scott was spilling it out for us. So, on December 13th, 2015, MatPat presented the Dream Theory, that all the games for the most part were merely dreams created inside the mind of the crying child. And everyone hated it. The idea of all the games just being dreams felt like a cop-out and a cheap way of solving the series' story.
Because it's all a dream, weird stuff can be written off, logical errors overlooked simply because it's not actually real. And for a game like FNAF, where us theorists have spent thousands of hours combing through all the details, making and remaking timelines, bending over backwards to make every last piece of information fit together across the 4 games, it was just a dream reveal invalidates all of that work.
The backlash from fans showed Scott that the Dream Theory was a very unsatisfying way to end the series. And it was what led him to ultimately continue the series, despite the fact that FNAF 4 was supposed to be the final chapter.
You know, I felt that it had all gone kind of it had strayed too far from an actual story in a way. You know, it went too broad for interpretation, and that left people unsatisfied. You know, because whereas the other ones, yeah, there were mysteries, 4 ended up just too mysterious to the point where you really couldn't, you know, there was no real way to figure out what was going on.
The reception of FNAF 4 was very mixed, with some complimenting its gameplay, story, and being one of the scariest games in the series, while others criticized it for being unoriginal, having a confusing story, and just overall not being very scary. Alright, this is around the time when FNAF fan content exploded. There was just so much stuff that I simply cannot talk about everything in this video, so I'm mainly gonna try and brush on a few things. I say that, but like the community section is like, it's like almost a whole page and a half. First are the fan songs. Of course we had Living Tombstone, the FNAF song, I Got No Time, and not to mention Break My Mind by DA Games. As for fan games and fan content, the most prominent ones were really just sequels to already existing properties, such as Five Nights at Candy's 2 and 3, One Night at Flumpty's 2, as well as some more How to Make Five Nights at Freddy's Not Scary videos, and also some more 5 AM at Freddy's videos. There were some other videos being made at this time. We don't talk about those. Something that I probably should mention, though, is that this is around the time one of the first prominent Five Nights at Freddy's controversies started. I briefly mentioned last time how Smike's channel blew up after he started making FNAF videos. Those videos in question were mostly top 10 videos about different FNAF characters. The problem with these videos was that they used a lot of fan art without the creator's permission or credit. Eventually, some of the artists found out about this and decided to take action. On September the 6th, 2015, Smike received 2 copyright strikes on his channel, and in a desperate effort to save his channel, he would delete all of his top 10 videos that had used fan art. He would then post an apology video where he gave credit to all the artists he stole fan art from. He would later re-upload his old top 10s, but this time with no fan art in them. Alright, theories. We already talked extensively on Dream Theory, but there of course was still theories surrounding the Bite of 87. This time it was a lot more specific though, as people were trying to figure out whether or not this was actually the real Bite of 87. Most people assumed that it was the Bite of 87 considering all the promotional art and just the fact that it doesn't really make a whole lot of sense for it not to be the Bite of 87, but still, there were others who thought that this was a completely different Bite, and that rather than being the Bite of 87, it was the new Chump of 83. But obviously that name didn't really stick, so they later changed it to just be the Bite of 83. Eventually, however, the Bite of 83 became the more accepted theory as time went on. There were also theories about who you were playing as. While some thought it was the crying child because of the flowers in the IV bag beside the bed, there were others who thought it was possibly the older brother, who was traumatized in the death of his little brother and was now being haunted by the monsters of his past mistakes. While no one has really been able to agree fully on who the protagonist is, A lot of fans believe it to be the older brother. There was also a game theory made before the release of FNAF 4 where Mappak claimed that it would be scientifically impossible for the player to be having the kind of nightmares that they're having in this game, if they were, of course, the bite victim. And that's good and all, but what if the player wasn't the bite victim? Unfortunately, this is around the time when people were getting sick and tired of FNAF and thought that Scott was just milking the series for all it was worth. These feelings were only amplified with the oversaturation of FNAF content. It was everywhere on YouTube, and no one can seem to get away from it. Another problem the FNAF community was facing was the influx of children getting into the series. And when there's kids, there's this stuff. Now you might be asking, why would kids be getting into this series in the first place? Well, it's simple. Kids don't like being treated like kids, and they'll automatically gravitate towards stuff that is a little bit too old for them. So it's no surprise why they're again so invested into FNAF. It makes them feel hip and cool. Apparently a bunch of kids had this similar mindset and all jumped onto the FNAF hype train, and before you knew it, a majority of the community was filled with kids. This led to a lot of older fans distancing themselves from the series as not to be associated with any of these cringy kids, and thus began the downfall of Five Nights at Freddy's. FNAF was no longer the big new thing on the internet. Now people were just hoping for it to end. And with FNAF 4 dubbing itself the final chapter, it really seemed that way. FNAF had a good run, but it was time for the spotlight to move on to something else. And for this series to become a memory of the past. Except that isn't what happened. After the reception of FNAF 4 and especially Dream Theory, Scott would reconsider his initial plan to end the series and craft it into something new, something different, something unexpected. A new FNAF game that would permanently change the direction of the series forever. But not before making a cute RPG and a visual novel, so stay tuned for that stuff. But as for this video, I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, be sure to like, comment, maybe subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. But this is a random video that I hope you enjoyed. Peace out.
FNAF number 8 is that Toy Freddy, well, you know, he's kinda, fat.